What's going on, everybody? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, and I'm bringing to you again another episode of Kick Your Butt Out. As usual, before I get off into what I want to talk about, I have to say what I always say, and I need you to get this in your thinking so that you can internalize and incorporate this thing into your life. That is, if you're looking for a butt, it is going to always be easy to find one. It's just that simple. All right, y'all. Without further ado, let me get into what I want to talk about today, because this, not that all of them aren't important. This one, however, is very important because, again, it's about how we drift. And we don't even know it. We don't realize until we have to start to try to work our way back. And we realize how challenging, how difficult, how hard it can be when we are trying to work our way back. So if we don't drift, we don't have to worry about working our way back. Monday, when I talked about we don't realize how far until I talked about it from a relationship standpoint, our most important relationships, whether our relationship with God, ourselves, our significant others, family, friends, children, you name it. I touched upon all of those different areas. However, today, in talking about we don't realize how far until, I want to talk about it from a recovery standpoint. Because I am a person in recovery and I've experienced some drifting myself in the past, as well as I've known people, whether closely, personally, or indirectly, that talked about that drifting part that put them in a place of relapse. Because many times I want to say this to everybody, that for us who are in recovery or have loved ones that are in recovery or have someone that's close to us that is in recovery, more often than not, we don't realize how far we have drifted away until we are in full-blown relapse. I want to say it like that. So I'm going to talk about my journey. And this hasn't, fortunately for me, for the last 8 years, 11 months, and a couple of weeks, I'm a couple of weeks away from 9 years of total recovery, total abstinence, total recovery. But before I got to that place where I started to have a solid foundation and a consistent journey with my recovery, I drifted many times. It took me 6 residential treatments to get to a place where I really started, again, a consistent line and path of recovery. And so I remember times when I've drifted, back when I was living in Milwaukee. And let me say this, let me make sure that I clarify this. All of the times before I drifted, I had a mindset that I wanted to do this recovery thing. Everything in me wanted to do this recovery thing. Everything in me didn't want to go back to the drugs, but I always ended up back, and it was because of a drift. I remember clearly, it was 2001. I went to jail for the umpteenth time, had many cases pending for the umpteenth time. And these cases, initially, the state and the courts wanted to send me to prison for the 5th time. And they were saying, like, even if he doesn't go to prison for the crimes themselves, he needs to go to prison because he has made this thing a career. He's been to prison already 4 times, and he has not learned his lesson. So if nothing else, we need to send him to prison again. However, God had a different plan. And so I ended up being allowed, while my cases were pending, to go into treatment. And part of the being allowed to go into treatment was to successfully complete treatment, residential. As a matter of fact, that was my first residential. But that was a part of that plan, was to successfully complete my residential and maintain sobriety during the course of the case pending and after the sentencing, which was part of my probation. And so I went to treatment while the cases was pending. I was a model guy in the treatment. You know, I was one of the guys that the counselors were saying he's most likely to be one of those people that make it, because at those times, or during those times, it was often said that only a small percentage of y'all gonna make it. You know, if it's 10 of y'all, maybe 2 of y'all gonna make it. It was often said, those things were often said in the treatment centers. And I was one of those that they said he will probably be a part of that 20%, or that small percentage of people who make it coming out of these places. I was even in some cases appointed or voted in as the house captain, or the big brother in the house, and things of that nature, only to go out and when I graduated from the treatment center, got the cases settled, got probation, I was going to NA meetings, and I was going back to the treatment house that I was in. You know, as an alumni, I started all of that. I started off that way when I got out of treatment, because again, I was of a mindset and a heart that I really wanted to live a life of recovery. But I drifted. I remember drifting. And one of the ways that I drifted is because when I would go to these treatment events or recovery events, I was the type of person at that time with a mindset that I was looking for the differences rather than the similarities. And the differences that I had with some of these people that I was able to pinpoint willingly and wantingly, I would stop going to those places, and I would be by myself for a period of time till I got bored. And once I got bored, I would start to go back around the people who was, you know, in the places and doing the things that I said that I wasn't going to ever do again. And, you know, initially, I wouldn't get high when I go around and visit them. You know, it would take some time for me to start to get high again, but that was all a part of my drifting process. I would stop going to the things that was recovery focused or recovery based, and then I'll start hanging by myself, and then I'll get bored and I'll need something to do or somewhere to go or somewhere to be or some people to be around, and then I'll start going and hanging around the old people in the old places that was doing the old things. And like I said, initially I wouldn't use. I would probably most of the time even give them money to go get their drug of choice, which eventually led to me saying, hey, now here's the day where you all get me one, you know, and that's how it always went. It never went different. It was all, I drifted 100% of the times that I drifted, that was the process. And then this is when I always realized that I drifted. When I wake up one morning and I'll be going through withdrawals. I started to feel the signs of withdrawals. Let me say that right. I started to feel the signs of withdrawals because, again, my drug of choice was heroin. And I started to feel those withdrawals. And instead of me turning away from it and going back to that thing that I knew that was helping me before, I would go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'd find myself either in treatment again or in jail. And here was the question that I always asked God. How did I get back here again? That was always the dumb question. Listen, they say you can't ask dumb questions. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there. That was the question that I always asked. And my God is so loving that he would show me all of the things that led up to me being so far away or drifting so far away that I was so overcome with and intertwined in relapse that the only way for me to stop or for me to start to work my way back is I had to be stopped through either treatment or jail. I'm glad I wasn't stopped through death. Thank you so much, God, for that. I'm glad that I wasn't stopped, through overdose, because I never overdosed. Nothing I did to stop it. Let me tell you that. I did everything that I needed to do to overdose. It just never happened. Thank God. And again, I wouldn't realize how far that I've drifted away until I'm in jail with another case, or I'm in treatment because I don't have nowhere to go. People haven't gotten rid of me. You name it. All of the reasons. And I would do this thing over and over and over again until I got to my sixth treatment. And at that sixth treatment, I made a decision that I wasn't going to drift anymore. And again, I'm about 2 weeks away from celebrating 9 years of continuous, consistent recovery. Couple other stories of people who I know. It was a guy, one of my best friends in recovery. He was my sponsor and my best friend, Kevin. If you hear this podcast or if you watch this podcast, thank you so much for all that you had been to me during this season when we were together. When I met my sponsor, the guy who was my sponsor and ended up being my best friend, he was about 2 to 3 years into his recovery journey after having 28 years. Yep, I said it right. He had 27 or 28 years, and then he got back he drifted, right? He drifted away, went back into using for a period of time, and then he was able to come back, and to this day, he has a continuous recovery. And one of the things that he said, how he drifted, he said, I stopped doing what was working for me. I stopped doing what was working for me. And I didn't realize how far I had gotten away till I was so deep in it, I thought that I would never get out of it. Again, fortunately, he was able to get out of it. But I found that to be really interesting, what he said. And I took that thing to heart because when I learned that from him, I was in this recovery. I was early in this recovery. He said I stopped doing the things that worked for me. And many of you out there may be that person, or you may know someone who is getting to a place that they're stopping doing what was working for them. And I'm here to tell you right now, that's a drift. And if you continue this stoppage, or if you continue to watch someone that you know stop, unfortunately, they're going to end up drifting to a place where it's challenging and hard to get back to where they want to be in life. I was at I was a speaker at a support meeting a couple of years ago. I think it was in 2022, maybe 23. Anyway, after I got done speaking, there was a lady that was sitting next to me, and she commended me on what I talked about, and then it was at a point that she had started talking about her journey with recovery. And she mentioned that she was on day 9 of her journey. This was after having 30 years of recovery. And she talked just like my friend Kevin. She talked about the same thing. I stopped doing what was working for me, and I started to pick up what wasn't working for me. And that is, she talked about taking on a lot of other people's burdens, a lot of other people's problems, a lot of other people's, she was just overcome with so much of other people's stuff without focusing on her and taking care of herself, that she started to drift, right? She was so focused on their stuff, she drifted from her stuff into their stuff, and then one day it all just exploded. And she found herself at 9 days after having 30 years. They say that, and I hate this cliche, I hate this statement. They say that relapse is part of recovery. Well, I'm here to tell you that it does not have to be. You don't have to drift. You do not have to relapse. You don't have to do that. If you continue to do what you need to be doing, not what you want to do, you won't find yourself in a drift type of situation. You won't find yourself in a situation where I'm trying to get back to where I was, or I'm having to start over again and again and again. If you continue to do what you was doing in the beginning, doing what was working for you, keeping focused on what you need to be doing and what you need to not go. And more often than not, one of the most important places that we need to stay away from is in here. Because when we get in our own heads and in our own thinking, that's when we find ourselves drifting away or have drifted away. And that's whether it's recovery, our relationship with God, our relationships with other people, spouses, you name it. When we get into here, this is the most dangerous place to be if we in there by ourselves. So here's another way I want to talk about drifting. You don't realize how far you've gotten away, how far you've drifted until. I want to speak to the person, the family member, the loved one, the friend, the spouse of a person who has issues with substances or who is fighting for a life of recovery. I want to speak to you all who are not in recovery but have some loved one or someone you know who is. A lot of times you end up drifting and don't realize how far you've gotten away until you're trying to work your way back. And what I mean by that, you've set a boundary with your loved one. Hey, listen, no drinking or no using. at my house. If you can't even come to my house under the influence, those types of things. And then you find yourself in a situation where you let up on your boundary. Let me say it like that. You can come in once, and then that's again, and that's again and again, and then next thing you know, this person is using again in your house, hiding liquor, hiding drugs, doing drugs in the basement, in the closet, in the bathroom, you name it. What am I saying to the people who have loved ones, the people that they know who are in recovery? Excuse me. Whatever boundaries or rules or regulations that you have set with the person, your loved one who's in recovery, whatever ones that you have set, don't move them. Don't drift away from them. You have to stay focused and fixed on what it is that you set. Now, if your loved one ends up back in a relapse or whatever the case may be, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if they do, at least you are not an enabler. At least you're not enabling them to stay in that by you standing to your rules, standing to what you said, standing to your boundaries, standing to them and sticking to them and not allowing them to move because one day you decide, oh, well, it's a little cold outside, or I don't want to see them out there doing this, or whatever the case may be. It's Christmas. Everybody's at the house. Listen, I want to say this to you, people. If I set a boundary that my whoever can't come to my house, high, I don't care if it's Christmas, you're not allowed here if you're high. Because again, we don't realize how far we have drifted till we're trying to work our way back. And if we don't drift, at least our loved ones know that when they come around us, they got to be on their P's and Q's. They got to be doing what is right. That's what we have. We have to set those type of boundaries when it comes to our loved ones and stick to them, not drifting away from them. Because I said it to my son, I don't want to be a party to your death. And we can't be a party to our loved ones' deaths. So to you who are out there that's in recovery and you feel like you're starting to get away from what's working for you, let's have some conversations so we can get back on this so that you don't drift and find yourself in a place and in a position that you said you don't never want to be in again. A place in a position that you don't want to be. And to the loved ones out there who have relatives or someone that they love who is struggling with substance use and relapse and all of the things like that, whatever rules and regulations that you have set, whatever boundaries that you have set concerning your loved ones, you have to keep yourself safe as well. Don't drift away from them. Don't drift away from what you have set in place so that your loved one knows, like I said earlier, when you come around me, you're going to have to be on your P's and Q's. You're going to have to be in the right mindset. And so everybody within the sound of my voice who's listening to this podcast, if this relates to you or somebody you know, please, let's have some conversations around this. Because at the end of the day, what these podcasts are designed to do is to change and save lives. That's what Kick Your Butt Out is about. It's not for popularity. It's not for you all to look at me like I'm this guru or whatever, the best speaker in the world, whatever. And then some of these, I knew I could be a better speaker. And don't worry about that. Anyway, these are designed to change lives, to change and save lives. So please, let's have some conversations. If you know anybody, or if that's you, let's talk about this so that we can come together with some support and some solutions to turn this thing around. That's my time, y'all. This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. And until the next time I see you, be well, do the next right thing. God bless you all. And if you looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. Talk to y'all later. Peace.